Okay, if we have your attention, we'll go ahead and get started, get organized. Emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you have reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building, being mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles. At this time, we'll call a roll. Burkhalter.
Here.
Kaler.
Here.
Farmer.
Here.
Lael.
Here.
Ms. King. Ms. DeShant. Deshay, excuse me. Mayor Mitchell. Okay. At this time, the chair will stand for nominations for chairman of this ad hoc committee. Mr. Farmer's name's been put in. Is there a second?
I second.
Chair will stand for motion to close nominations.
Close nominations, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, roll call vote on Mr. Farmer's chairman. Burkhalter.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Farmer. Lael.
Aye.
King. Deshay. Mr. Farmer, it's yours.
Thank you very much. We'll now stand for election of the vice chairman. Do I have a nomination? Mr. Burkhalter's been nominated. Do I have a second?
Second.
That'd be Mr. Kaler. Do I have any other nominations? Stand for a motion of nominations to cease. Do I have a second? We have a roll call vote. Will you call the roll, ma'am?
Burkhalter.
Yes.
Kaler.
Yes.
Farmer.
Yes.
Lael.
Yes.
King. Deshay.
Okay, we now have vice chairman. Now stand for motion to set the agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kaler.
Second.
Second, Mr. Burkhalter. Any additions, questions? Oh, Mr. Shea, if you wish to speak, the speaker in front of you, if you will mash that button, it will flash up in front of me. Ms. King, same thing. Anytime you wish to speak, all you have to do is just hit that button. I will immediately know that you want to speak. Okay. I'm not going to do roll call on setting of the agenda. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The agenda is set. Stand for public input on items on the agenda. If there's anyone wishes to speak, please raise your hand and I will bring you up one at a time. I will ask you, please, when you come to the microphone, identify yourself for this body so that we actually know who's speaking to us. Okay, sir, if you'll come up first. Ms. King, I'll get you next, ma'am.
I'm Jack Horner. I'm Vice President of Recycling Operations for Goodwill Industries, Knoxville. And our purpose for being here tonight is just to introduce ourselves to the commission for this committee and to let you know that we would be interested in working with Blount County in any way possible to provide recycling program for the county citizens here. We've got a long history. We've worked with the city of Knoxville for 20 years with drop-off recycling centers. We operate Knox County drop-off recycling centers for the past several years, and we've operated a full-scale material recovery facility for 10 years now. And we're just received a state grant to establish a multi-county recycling hub operation, so we'll be opening a second MRF at that time. And we're very interested in whatever the committee decides to pursue in a way of recycling for citizens and working with you and making any assistance that we can to the citizens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Horner. One thing, you introduced yourself quite quickly. Okay. What is the name of your company again so we can write it down?
Okay, it's Goodwill Industries, Knoxville, Incorporated.
Thank you very
Okay.
much, sir. Ms. King?
Thank you. I'm Linda King. And I understand that Maryville stopped the Blount County citizens from recycling in their areas. However, I still don't understand the to-do about setting up an ad hoc committee. I checked today, and there's a listing for Blount County recycling at 1627 Robert C. Jackson Drive with Spectra. And I called, and that's still up and running. And they said that is for all Blount County citizens. And also, we have a recycling system out by Bill Dunlap's highway department. I know there's also several little places. I know Joe and I take our papers to Chilhai View Community Center. So there's several little places around the community. So I don't think even at this point that we have to rely on the city of Maryville. I think these other places are available for us. So I don't know if people are not aware of that. Maybe we just need to make that more public so that they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will go forward. Anyone else wish to speak? I'm sorry, ma'am, I did not see your hand. If you'll come up to the microphone, introduce yourself and let us know who you are, please.
Certainly. My name is Amy Woodby, and I am the current owner of Woodby Recycling Services. We provide curbside recycling services to all citizens in the Blount County area, as well as the city of Maryville. We have operated for over a year inside the Blount County area. We service Louisville, Wallen, Townsend, and Seymour. I apologize, I'm a little hoarse. But it's my husband and I, and we would also just like to introduce ourselves to the commission to let you guys know that we are a service that is available to all Blount County citizens, as well as the city of Maryville and the outlying areas. We currently provide curbside recycling, but we would also be interested in providing the county citizens with a convenience center.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And that was Amy Woodby?
Woodby.
I'm going to hope I have the spelling on that correct. Got it. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we will go forward under new business. Discussion possible action regarding the establishment of a recycling program for Blount County citizens. What has brought us to this point is it was well publicized that many of the Blount County citizens were using City of Maryville facilities for recycling. We do have a couple of small recycling facilities. This committee was established to look into this and what could be done for Blount County. So we will go from there. Mr. Kaler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let the other board members or committee members be aware of the fact that Greg McLean, our Maryville City Manager, is here tonight. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think that he is prepared to maybe answer some questions that I think some of us have. And I also think that he is probably prepared to maybe share with us some trials and tribulations that the city has gone through in their endeavor to provide recycling and make it convenient for the consumer.
Thank you very much. Mr. McLean, since you have been noted, I will recognize you if you would not mind coming up, and there may be a couple of questions, and obviously we do need to rely partially on your expertise in trying to set up something for all of Blount County.
Well, if I could, and if it would be all right with you guys, it'd be nice maybe to go back and just talk quick history, you know, kind of how did we come to be where we are today. And I think it'll set a lot of things in a much clearer light. You know, when you begin to talk about an issue as complex as this, and only little bits and pieces of that fall out to the press, it's really easy for that to be misconstrued or misunderstood or so on. So hopefully as we go through this, and I'll try to make this as brief as possible, hopefully it'll answer a lot of questions or maybe some things that you've got written down. Maybe we'll go ahead and answer those outright. Just a reminder, recycling in this county kind of started back with the IDB entering an agreement with a vocational training facility And if you're familiar with that, it exists today. They take handicapped adults and teach them trades. And Jim Brown, who was one of the folks there at the time, approached the industrial board. They were leasing the building that the current Spectra operations is in today. They had leased that originally to do this training. In 1994, it was talked about introducing, to help train these handicapped adults, to recyclables. So with that, they approached the industrial board. It was really a intergovernmental agreement between Blount County, Alcoa, and Maryville. Decided it's a great idea, and there was an expansion of the building, a physical expansion, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on that building to put in loading docks and basically equip it for recycling. And the vocational training facility now is in business as the recyclers for the community, and they would teach these handicapped adults a new trade. So for a number of years, that's what happened. And in that process, the two cities in particular got involved, and the county got involved to an extent of helping going out and get trailers, and the two cities began to have drop-offs, and they would deliver those to the Tennessee Vocational Training Facility. And for a number of years, that worked out pretty well. Now, about, around 2003, Jim Brown approached everybody and said, you know, this is a great thing. We love having this because it's really something that we can really train our folks. The problem with it is the cost of it now is outrunning any revenues. It used to be that you could make a little bit of money on glass and a little bit of money on things, and aluminum cans in particular, that would help offset the cost. But what was happening to their facility was it was costing a lot more than they were making. So it just wasn't cost effective. And Jim said they really need to get out of that business. Well, by that time, Alcoa had already gone to a curbside facility. So what Maryville was confronted with is if he can no longer take those recyclables, what are we going to do with ours? Are we going to ship them all the way to Knoxville, or, you know, what's our options? So we approached various recyclers and asked if there was anyone interested in coming into that business. And Spectra was one that was a successful bidder that came in. And in essence, that building that the IDB owned, the Tennessee vocational folks stayed in one half of it, and Spectra took the other half, the recycling part, and went into business recycling primarily for the drop-offs in Maryville. And I think at the time Alcoa had maybe one or two. I think they had one at the landfill and they had one in town. So they had a little bit coming in, but for the most part it was mostly Maryville trailers being dumped there. So that went on for a number of years, and in 2006, the IDB decided they wanted to divest themselves of the building. So now our concern was, all right, if they're going to sell the building, who might get that building? And if they buy that building, might they ask those folks to leave? And then we're kind of back in the same boat of no place to take our recyclables. So Maryville bought the building, and we bought that from IDB back in August of 2006. And for probably about 3 years, 2 or 3 years, we owned the building. We had an agreement with Spectra to handle that recyclables for us, and that worked fair. I mean, as you can imagine, there are always issues when you're the landlord and you're working through service delivery like this, but it worked, and that was our options at the time. About 2009, we decided, because the Tennessee Vocational Training Facility was getting ready to build a new building, they were going to get out. We were going to lose a tenant, and we decided, you know, it's probably time for us to get out of the landlord business. Spectra's there. We put the building up for sale. Spectra bought it. So now you've got the building owned by Spectra and the facility all run by Spectra. In Maryville, that was our place to bring our recyclables. Now, in the meantime, our staff, the public works staff, was looking at ways to try to expand what we're doing and take in more, because we had capacity, and it's been said a number of times that the county residents weren't supposed to. It was fine for them to dump. There was never a prohibition for county residents. We had the capacity. There was no reason not to. Everybody knew the county residents were coming, and it was fine. There was never heartache over that. It was fine for that to happen. I mean, we never posted it to say Maryville residents only. It was never intended to be Maryville residents only. So why are we where we are today? In, I guess about 2 years ago, we made a change. We left Spectra for a company called the Green Team. The Green Team said that they'd actually approached us to try to do curbside for all of Maryville. And we were interested about that because their business model was it would be very little cost to us. We weren't sure we understood how they would do that, but we were willing to kind of enter into an agreement. And what we said was, let's begin with just the drop-offs. We feel like if you can manage the drop-offs, then possibly we could move into doing curbside. Because, and I think this is real important for everybody to know, that's our intention. Maryville's going to go to curbside recycling at some point. And I'll tell you why we're not there yet in a minute. So we entered an agreement with the Green Team. We left Spectra. He's still there. Steve Dixon and his folks do a great job, and they're still in business, and they will take any recyclables you want to bring them. It's a great resource. The Green Team was going to collect from our drop-offs and do all the sorting themselves. The plan here is to try to move to a single stream. You know, the mentality for years and years and years of recycling was you go to the recyclable, or it starts in your house. I got a bottle, I got plastic, I got glass, I've got newspapers, and you go out in the garage, you get all these bins, and you separate that. As many of you know, I was the landfill director for about 3 years, and as part of that, a member of the Solid Waste Authority, or the executive director of that, worked with Blount Beautiful, still do. I'm currently chairman of the Solid Waste Authority. But in that, we came to understand a lot about recycling, and one thing was that when you're doing separation at the home or at the curb, you get about a 30 to 35% participation rate. Because you can imagine taking your milk jugs and putting them in there and hauling that, you're just hauling a lot of air because you've got everything is uncompressed. So from a investment standpoint, we just weren't really willing to expend the money it would take to get into curbside for 10,000 homes yet until the technology changed. And one way to make it much more affordable is to do single stream. So we were doing separation at the drop-offs in these individual bins. And what we wanted to get to is begin to change the thinking of our community to single stream. And what that means is you just put it all together. It's a glass bottle, it's newspaper, it's cardboard. You could also expand that to steel cans, dry cleaner plastic. I mean, there's a whole list of those things that you just dump in one container, and then it's picked up at the curb like you do trash. It's compressed, so you get a lot of bang for the buck. Well, in that change, and here's where our decisions have been kind of forced on us. When we made that change at the drop-offs, instead of separating it within the drop-off locations, we said you can just come and put it all together. Because that's so convenient and so easy, it doubled our tonnage. We were running about 150 tons a month, and it went, or I think a little over 100 tons a month. We went over 200 tons a month overnight because it was so easy for that to happen that suddenly we're inundated. And I brought some pictures. I'll be glad to leave this with you and everything we're talking about here. But, you know, just to give you an idea, our folks were confronted every morning with, you know, trash, just recyclables, just everywhere. And it was taking us forever to try to clean it up and get it hauled off and all that. We've been working with Rock 10, and Rock 10 does not charge us to come and get this, and we don't charge them for the materials. It's a great partnership that we have with them currently, but quite honestly, they can't keep up with the rate of recycling that's happening in the drop-offs that we have today. So we met with City Council, we've talked with our staff, we've looked at lots of options, and I've got all that here that I'll leave with you, Mr. Chairman. The truth of the matter is, knowing that we probably got three options. One is to get out of the business, just quit doing it. Well, the problem with that option is we have state mandates that require a reduction of waste and that really falls to the county first, and we're just a part of that exercise. To meet that 25% reduction for the county, we're doing our part to do that. Now, there is some talk, as the Solid Waste Authority chairman and dealing with legislation that's being pressed in Nashville, there's some talk about taking that to 50%. You know, a mandated requirement that you reduce 50% of your waste in your county. So getting out of the business, though it's an option, it's not a good one, because what would we then do to meet these mandates? The other option on the far extreme is just go to curbside. Curbside recycling, as we had initially costed it out, similar to what Alcoa is doing, for Maryville was going to cost anywhere from $600,000 to $700,000 a year additional money of what we were currently doing. And for a number of years, we had surveyed our community and our citizens and said, do you want curbside recycling? Yes. Do you want to pay extra for it? No. We don't want to pay extra. So we've been kind of waiting on the economy to change, times to get a little bit better, and go back to this community with maybe some alternatives that are cheaper. And what we're looking at today is going curbside within a year or two and do it with our own forces and not contract it out. So we're doing the evaluation between doing it ourselves or contracting with someone. Now, that's where Maryville's going, ultimately. I've shared with a couple of county officials in the past that we're looking at that, and when we get to that place and we go to curbside, this is before we knew we were going to be outrun in our drop-offs, we need to think through, what do you guys do? Because there's a tremendous number of folks in the county that recycle. It's a passion for a number of folks, and we want to help be a part of that solution. So we're headed to curbside, which means we won't need our drop-offs. We won't be using drop-offs anymore. We know we can't get out of the business, so in the meantime, between now and getting to curbside, we've got to make our drop-offs manageable. And the only way we know to do that, there's a couple of options within that, is we could, begin to limit it. And unfortunately, the limiting would be that just the citizens that are actually paying for the service would get it, which would mean we would close it at certain hours, we'd man it. If it does get overrun, we'd shut the gates because it becomes a tremendous eyesore, and we get a lot of calls for that. Another option is to invest more money into it. If we wanted to keep the Blount County folks in, we'd have to invest more money, and one thing to do is put in compactors at a fair expense to put compactors in, but you could put it in there, compact it, put it in there, compact it, because really it's a volume issue for us. But knowing that we're going to curbside, we hate to spend that money now, knowing that we're going to walk away from it in a couple of years. So that's kind of what's been driving our decision making. And I would say today that we have yet to tell citizens of Blount County that they can't drop off recyclables. The city has never said that. What we've said is changes are coming, and that may be the result, but we've yet to pull that trigger and say you can't. So just so you know, we've not come out and said you can't yet, but we are saying that that's imminent because we cannot outrun the volume. So here's what I would submit to you: as your committee gets up to speed, we're more than happy to bring what we know of this issue. We've been in it a long time. We've got a lot of expertise. We know the pitfalls, as Commissioner Kaler had said. We've stumped our toe in a lot of directions, but I think we can help you guys think this through. The other thing I would say too is that if there is some thought in our transition that if you guys want to, if something that you plan to do works into what we're currently doing, if you think you want to have drop-offs in the future and you want to have compaction or you want to do these things, maybe that's something we do together in the transition. Whereas we kind of bow out of these, you guys come up to speed and take them over as we find ourselves in the curbside someday. So just know that's an offer that we may be able to find a transition plan as we need to kind of step away from what we're doing, and you guys stepping into it. I'll be more than happy to work with you in that regard. So I tried to make that as short as possible, but that's kind of the waterfront of our experience with recycling. So any questions that you might have?
Okay, Mr. Burkhalter.
Mr. McLean, thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, sir.
So is it fair to say that if there is a website that says city residents only for recycling inside the city of Maryville, that's an incorrect statement on those websites?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Any questions, Mr. McLean? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, what was the price of the compactors that you were looking at? And if you can also give us an idea of what is the cost that it is to you, to the city, to maintain the 3 locations that you have, if you have that available?
Well, a compactor, and I'm working off of memory here because we put it in a range, but I think if my memory is correct, it's somewhere around $150,000 per compactor. And depending on how many locations you would want to put that, we would do that. Now, the cost per site, we have a site that we've been using at where High Praises Church is. That's a private property. That's the one that will be closing in a few weeks, partly out of the request of the owner, because as you can imagine, that outrunning that we've been unable to keep up with, it just has been an eyesore for them. So they really just didn't want to have all that there. So it's a private piece of property that's just donated for our use. That didn't cost us anything. We have a lease with Maryville College for the property beside the Justice Center. They own that piece of property, and we've leased that for them for many years. I don't know that that has any cost to it. They just allow us to use it. We have the Best Street site, which we own. So the actual land or leases or the use of property, we either own it or lease it for no charge. The cost of doing the total business is probably $200,000 or $300,000 of our time in terms of managing the facilities, particularly right now where we're having to put people out there every day virtually cleaning them up. And where Rock 10 can't keep up, we've been sending our folks to Knoxville with trailers, trying to just get the overflow moved off. So, all said and done, we probably got $250,000 roughly in the cost, which is down from what we used to spend because we've gone to using Rock 10 to do much of the hauling for us at their cost in trade for the materials.
As a follow-up, and you might not feel comfortable to answering this question, but you talk about how Rock 10 can't keep up with the demand.
They are not in the hauling business. That's not their job. I mean, Rock 10 is a processing facility. They are a place that says, bring us your materials, single stream, dump it on our floor, we'll sort it. That's what they do. In this case, we went and approached them and said, we're having difficulty getting the materials shipped. They said, well, let us help you. So this is not their business. They're not a hauler. They're kind of doing this as a favor to us, knowing there's a tremendous amount of material, and they know we're in a transition, and they're just trying to help us through. So they've been a tremendous partner. But their business, their core business is the processing facility, they're not a hauler. Rock 10 is a big company, too. I think they're nationwide. It's not a small business.
Anyone else?
Can I give you this packet of information?
If you will, just lay it down there, and
Okay.
We'll get it passed out. I don't want to violate the commission rules that we don't do handouts while we're up here.
Perfect.
but if you would, I'll make sure it gets passed out.
Good deal.
Mr. McLean, thank you very much. Moving onward and upward, any statements from anyone here? Mr. Lael? Go ahead.
As we go forward with this, I would like to request that the mayor's attorney pull the joint operating or the interlocal agreement on the dump so that we can see what is required to set up maybe a center there, because that may become an option for us to do that. Right now, as it's been stated, there are several options that are open. We may come to the conclusion that we can exist on what we have, but we still have not made a complete study, and I think that would help us clarify our position by having that.
Okay, you put that in the form of a motion.
Yes, sir, I do.
Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Burkhalter. Any other comments or statements? Yes, Mr. Shea.
The landfill does have some recycling there. They have a center set up. I think the main thing that I get calls from my office is the glass situation, because they do have places to take plastic, and I believe the landfill also has a place, and the Spectra site has a place to take plastic. But my main calls that I've been getting, especially in the last 2 weeks, and this week I've probably gotten about at least 6 or more, and emails, is people's main concern about plastic.
And that's sort of what I think this committee is set up to look into now, is how can we set those up for convenience at different locations, whether we can do single stream, whether we need to do the separation. So that's some of the things that we are here for.
Yeah,
but we have a motion to request to get that information, and a second. You hit your light again? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not going to do a roll call. All those in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes. Go ahead, Mr. Burkhalter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand that we have a very long relationship with Spectra Recycling. What type of relationship do we have with them? Is it a contractual relationship? Does anybody have any of that information about what the county is? Because I know they manage they might not manage, but they service all the recycling locations that are in the county and at MacArthur Road. Mr. Shaw, do you know any of that? Or
basically what I know, and just so you know, Steve Dixon is on my board, but my job is to take care of Keep Blount Beautiful and our residents. But he makes agreements with the businesses, and he makes all those agreements himself wherever he has his containers at. It's just an agreement between him and the business to have a recycling center there. And from what I understand, and I may not be correct in this, but from what I understand, he approached the highway department and asked if he could set up a center there, because it was requested by some of the residents in that area when the Alcoa Center went away to have something close for people to recycle over there. And what I have been told, and this has not come about that I'm aware of yet, but he was ordering, once he found out some changes were going to happen, that he was ordering more containers to offer plastic at some of these locations. And the reason that he hasn't offered plastic at the locations before, because he's a small business and he doesn't make any money, hardly if any, off plastic, like he does the paper and the aluminum. Does that answer your question?
So basically there's no contract?
No, it's just an agreement of he just wanted to offer recycling for residents where it was needed and what was convenient for him.
Mr. Lael.
Mr. Chairman, as we've gathered from listening to Mr. McLean and some of the information that has come out here, there seems to be a lack of understanding, one, two, continuity as far as having a program of any nature, because the program has evolved from one aspect, that being as a vehicle for the rehabilitation center, to a countywide issue. And I would suggest that one of the main issues of this committee is to look at what we can do to build a plan that can be published to the general public to, number one, alleviate any misunderstandings they may have about where these recycling centers do exist and what these folks can do about accessing those. I know that there have been many, many phone calls and messages passed about the problems that people are anticipating with the not being able to recycle, because, as I think the word was used, there is a passion for it, and it may be at this point in time, one of those things, too much of a good thing at this point, and we don't have an adequate set of communication for folks to know. Now, I know Mr. Shea we've talked briefly about publishing, and you may have already done this, a list of centers that are available. I know one of the issues I had from constituents is, well, how far am I going to have to drive to do this? A curbside type service probably is not going to be very functional for the county. I don't know, because of the way it's spread out. And so there needs to be some, convenience as far as a center area, one being we have the dump possibly, and that's why I asked for that information. Yes, sir.
Let me back up.
Okay.
You got started. Your first issue that you brought forward that this committee needs to handle was what, Mr. Lael?
Well,
establishing procedures?
Essentially defining which direction, defining what we're going to be looking at. Whether
That's
it be
sort of why we're here.
Yeah, okay. And I was sort of suggesting that in my roundabout way, I guess. I didn't mean to get too far off the task there, but first of all, define where we're going. Second of all, how we're going to communicate that information, and then, then at that point, once we gather the information, communicate what we've got going, create that dialogue, then we can make some decisions in the long run about how to handle things, because obviously this is something that's been building to this point for quite a while.
Okay, in essence, define what this committee is setting out to accomplish.
Exactly.
Then establish parameters in which we're going to go in that direction.
I think so. That's a good synopsis.
And then publish it to the general public of Blount County.
So we can get feedback and more information as needed.
Okay.
I don't see us solving
with
a lot
this
of problems
being the initial meeting, we can't jump in and do all of this tonight. It will be obvious that if we sort of define what we're wanting to do, and in line, and I really appreciate Mr. McLean being here tonight, in line with that, I understand that no statements have been made yet, but if you read between the lines, when the city completes their curbside service, we need to be able to offer something to our county residents.
I think they demand it.
And that's why we're here.
Right.
So number one, define where we're going, establish parameters in which we intend to get there, and what was the third thing, sir?
Communicate.
Okay.
Communicate.
Ladies, does that sound accurate to you two? Mr. Kaler?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Burkhalter?
Accurate.
Okay, so we sort of now have our parameters that we want to work toward. And with this in line and your request, then we can start from here trying to establish convenience locations.
I think from what feedback and information I've gotten from different folks on this, that is one of the main concerns, is because a lot of these folks are maybe not as mobile as some, and yet they really have a passion, and I'll use that term again, for this process of recycling, but there's limitations to what they can do, and I think that would be one of the high priorities, is setting it up so that as closely as possible, these folks can access whatever the solution is we come up with.
Thank you. Mr. Shea, in your other life, do you have access to the existing locations for drop-offs at this time?
We have everything listed on our website. We've always offered that service. And I work very hard to make sure that the information is accurate from what I've been told and to make sure everything is listed correctly. I really, really work hard to make sure. And everyone that calls me, I always explain that to them. And I would really, I have not done this yet because I was waiting for today, but I really would like to let out to the newspaper that there are there are places for you to recycle.
Yes,
because
ma'am.
I know that they can still go to the sites, but we haven't completely encouraged that, you know what I mean, because I know that there's going to be a change. So we've tried, you know what I'm saying, we've tried not to encourage that, and we have tried to let people know that we've always have on our site where they can recycle. So I think communication is a big issue right now.
Yes, ma'am. And would it be out of line to ask you to bring that with you to the next meeting?
Sure.
And then that way we can get it in the packet. If you will get it to Miss Pitts in the commission office, I'm sure she will be happy to attach it.
Okay.
And then it will be available to everyone. If you would please do that, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Mr. Lale, you still got your button pushed?
Oh, I
Just haven't turned it on. Okay. All right, we've sort of established our ground rules and where we want to go and what we want to do. In line with this, is there anything else, any other things that we need to bring forward tonight? Seeing none, I guess, I'm sorry, Mr.
I'm sorry,
Shea.
can I mention one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I had also, we have an opportunity for Keep America Beautiful this wasn't in your packets, I know what we were going to talk about today, but there's an opportunity for a Keep America Beautiful $10,000 waste management Thank Green grants for recycling programs. I'll have that in your packets for our next meeting so you can look it over, because it is an opportunity for either centers or curbside or different opportunities.
Yes,
for us
ma'am,
to-
and we can forward that on to, does that need to go through the budget committee?
the grant would come to us. But it would be
Okay.
something that we could use for a program if we decided to. I mean, it would be managed through us, and we could use the money for that.
so it would not necessarily be an expenditure that we would have to deal with.
Oh, okay.
It just might require our support.
It just might require
And
our
us
support,
decide what
which-
we would want to use the money for, and it's not due until June 12th.
Yes,
We
ma'am,
have
if
some
you
time
would
for
do that, because obviously we need to reschedule our next meeting pretty prompt, if that's good with you guys. Mr. Kaler, did you have a suggestion on when the next meeting needed to be held, sir?
No, sir, I was just clearing my throat.
Doggone. You have your calendar, Ms. Pitts?
March is pretty full.
Okay, March is pretty full. Would Tuesday, April 2nd, work for all here tonight?
What time? When the meeting starts?
5:30?
I have a first Tuesday commitment.
Okay, what is this?
Allocation of space before the agenda committee. Mr. Carver's here. Planning to have a meeting.
Pretty much March is filled. April 11th, better? Thursday, April the 11th, 5:30. Thursday, April 11th, 5:30. Work for you two gentlemen? Yes. Can we please set that up, ma'am? And at that time, we will begin going over the establishment of our parameters and what we are wanting to do, and also the request for a grant, and work that into the packet also. Anyone have anything else? Mr. Lale?
Mr. Chairman, at that point in time, you think we'd be in position to be, other than just items on the agenda, listing the information from, we have several people here who represent.
Yes, sir, I hope we will.
You think okay, so it would be
Presentations of companies and individuals, yes, sir.
If they want to
and
come
we
forward.
will, and I will put them on the agenda as they come into the commission office.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? And that would be in the mode of presentations, Mr. Lale. Good? Anything else? Anyone wish to speak to any items that weren't on the agenda? Being none, I'll stand for motion to...
Motion to adjourn.
Got it. And we will see you again on the 11th.